What lovely architecture. I really should have visited sooner. But where is everybody? Ah, finally. Somebody to give me directions. Excuse me, you there, young chap. Excuse me, sir. Hello? I was just wondering, could you tell me where one might find the Grand Seiko boutique, please? I say, steady on, old fellow. How frightfully rude. The spirit of Grand Seiko, and perhaps the best era of Seiko, influenced my choice of subject today, the SARB033. So why are we revisiting this cult classic watch? But most importantly, why will we never see a Seiko this good again under $500? With a lot of dissatisfied Seikoholics, are the glory days of Seiko over? Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And before we get into it, I'll do a quick wristwatch check. Wearing the Dan Henry 1962, one of my favorite Dan Henry watches of all time. This is my personal one, and I still absolutely adore it. And I should also do t-shirt check because I'm wearing the legend that is Hugo. Do check out the store. There'll be a link down below. Lots more great, cool little items for you guys to enjoy. And next month I'll be adding a whole bunch of new stuff, hopefully, too. The SARB033 is more than just a watch, and Seiko's price hike is far more complex than just inflation. With a little analysis, it gives us a clue of what Seiko are up to. A brand that's changed dramatically in recent years. First released in 2008, along with its sister variations, one with an off-white dial and the even rarer version with a salmon dial, it was hot off the back of the rebirth of the equally revered and highly acclaimed Alpinist, which was introduced a year earlier with the SARB017. The SARB033 ran for just over a decade before being discontinued in 2019. The Alpinist, with its rich historic lineage and vivid mix of gold numerals and emerald green sunburst dial, certainly took center stage. In fact, Rolex Hulk aside, one could even argue it started a trend for green dials that has culminated in influencing many new watches across the globe in 2021.
I don't want to be pedantic or anything, but the color of gold is gold. That's why it's called gold. What you have discovered, if it has a name, is some green.
The SARB033 seemed to come out of nowhere, but due to the classy, understated nature of its design, it took a while for it to be recognized for the true hidden gem it was. At first glance, it looks like a Grand Seiko, and this was no accident. The 033's design language also comes from Seiko's Spirit line, a family of mainly mechanical dress watches, but crucially, without the complexity and luxury refinement of Grand Seiko, thus allowing for a more affordable price. So why did Seiko create these mid-level watches? Well, the answer is quite simple. The Seiko 5 line was introduced in 1969 to capture a new generation of people and get them into mechanical watches. Seiko did this by offering them at super affordable prices. A similar strategy would be adopted with the SARB collection of watches, but at a slightly higher level. With over half a century of experience in mass production of affordable watches, but more importantly, the infrastructure and capability to achieve it, the SARB033 hit the market at a new sweet spot price range, at approximately $100 or more than your average Seiko 5, but well below the $500 mark. Anything above that, and you would have to start competing with the most economical Swiss offerings. But don't think by undercutting the Swiss, the SARB033 was a compromised watch. Far from it. When I first picked up one 5 years ago, it was perhaps the first time I'd seen a watch with sapphire glass costing so little, as opposed to Seiko's more typical proprietary hardlex. There was an impressive amount of refinement in the polishing of the case with the layered, contrasting finishing, and I thought, finally, a watch under $500 with a bracelet that had solid end links, along with quite a lot of delicate detail on the dial and hands, like the sewing needle seconds hand, the faceted markers, applied brand logo, and classical Dauphine hour and minute hands. They even bothered to sign the crown. The quality was undoubtedly higher, comparable to anything the Swiss could offer for under $1,000. Powering it was the hackable and hand-winding 6R15, unlike the less developed and now dated 7S26, that was still very much the backbone of most of the famed Seiko options around this time. This was before the rise of the now oversaturated micro-brand market that has filled the void as Seiko continues to raise its prices. So while it wasn't perfect, it did have a very conservative, dressy aesthetic, but simultaneously balanced with a sporty functionality. I mean, it had 100 meters water resistance, fantastic loom, despite being very small, and that inherently tough Seiko movement that is very dependable. Not only that, it was extremely versatile and, in my opinion, the definition of a true strap monster. Even its 38mm scale was a crowd pleaser in the midst of an oversized watch trend that dominated watches of this era. By ticking all these boxes, the goal of the watch was clear. It was to be as appealing to as many people as possible, because it was intended as the next step in the ladder, where at the top sits Grand Seiko and the lesser-known Creedor brand. Despite being a Japanese domestic release only, it was easily available online, and by the time of its discontinuation, Seiko had capitalized on its success by developing and expanding the Presage and SARB collections extensively. The larger and higher priced SARB021, over $500, that followed a few years later is a prime example. The 033 was not only a revelation to me of what Seiko are capable of making for so little, it got the attention of many other watch enthusiasts, in addition to some of the watch publications that normally scoff at the idea of featuring a watch at this price point. And soon, the SARB033 achieved a cult-like status. For Seiko, it was, of course, mission complete. And you'd expect that a sequel would be inevitable, a kind of, as SARB033-2, right? At a similar price. But no, the reason is because Seiko operates and does things in a very grand scale, a kind of long-term way of doing things. And to really fully understand this, we have to look back at not only the brand history itself, but the history of Japan. Sakoku is an isolationist policy that lasted over 200 years, limiting relations and trade between Japan and other countries. In 1854, a United States fleet forced Japan to open trade with the West, which led to the end of the shogunate and the restoration of imperial power in 1868. The Empire of Japan subsequently pursued a program of industrialization and modernization. By this time, watchmaking in the West was already rapidly advancing, and when Seiko was founded in 1881, a new age of Japanese-made clocks and watches was dawning. Pioneers in Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya were studying and producing pocket watches based on Western products. Seiko's founder, Mr. Hattori, became very successful selling imported watches in his shop, items that could not be found easily anywhere else in Japan. His success allowed him to invest and produce his own timepieces.
In 1913, he successfully created Japan's first wristwatch.
But in order for the Japanese watchmakers to entice their domestic market away from the dominance of imported foreign timepieces, they had to produce a superior product at less cost to the consumer, an obsession that continues to this very day. When you think about how Seiko started, It's almost ironic how it brought not only the Swiss dominance of the watch industry, but pretty much worldwide watchmaking to its knees by the 70s. Seiko finally succeeded, so much so that they even supplied the military during wartime. But this logical next step in becoming completely self-sufficient was hampered greatly by the aftermath of World War II and Japan's defeat. But the brand, like the country itself, carried on with a great tenacity and determination, overcoming numerous setbacks and innovating to the point where they were able to catch up with anything the rest of the world could offer.
この春、ハイブリッド感覚が持てております。なぜか、セイコーハイブリッド。わかる?
Despite eventually beating the Swiss in many chronometer accuracy trials and finally being able to mass produce for less than anyone else, one thing would always elude Seiko outside of Japan. Most of the Swiss brands that survived the quartz crisis diversified into aspirational luxury, and in that market, Seiko's success started to become its own downfall. Even within Japan, Swiss and German luxury watch brands are just as desired and collected as anywhere else in the world. However, the founding of Grand Seiko and its first release in 1960 had already begun to challenge the status of Swiss watches and change the perception of Japanese watches. Today, Grand Seiko's technical mastery of materials by expert craftsmanship, ingenuity of innovation with technologies such as spring drive, and premier levels of luxury quality is unquestionable. But despite being highly respected by watch enthusiasts and those knowledgeable in horology, the general public as a whole still know Seiko as a brand synonymous with affordable watches, regardless of the word grand appearing before it.
From Seiko at a rather modest price. Seiko, why compromise?
From song lyrics to endless movie scenes, pop culture very much demonstrates the distinction between luxury and affordable watches. I mean, there's that Nas line going from a Seiko to a Rolex, and countless portrayals on the silver screen of the wealthy and their power jewelry. As time passes and Grand Seiko slowly becomes better known, Seiko continues the slow, cyclical phasing out of older models and the introduction of newer replacements at a higher price. As with any watch brand, this incremental evolution will continue. Look at the progression of calibers in every watchmaker, and you will see exactly what I mean. The reason watch enthusiasts endlessly complain and miss the so-called good old days is because Seiko is not just a luxury brand. Seiko has every right to do this, and in fact, it should. By upgrading and updating the Seiko 5 line in recent years, then categorizing its more tool-style watches intended for professionals under the Prospex banner, the intentions are clear. The days of buying an ISO certified diver like the SKX for the price of a fashion watch are over. Maybe we had it too good, but will it destroy the brand? No.
These are pictures from those days. The man in the center of this picture is Kintaro, our founder, and the boy on the right is Reijiro, my uncle. They went on to be presidents of Seiko.
It's simply an illustrious heritage brand realizing and affirming their self-worth, defending it, reorganizing accordingly, and asking to be paid fairly for it. Knowing all this, Seiko to me remains the greatest watch brand of all time, and it is still firmly my favorite. They deserve it, and they've earned it. The Captain Willard reissue I recently reviewed is a perfect example of this change, along with the mixed feelings it evoked with many watch fans. At the end of the day, if you want a real Captain Willard, Seiko knows there is no substitute, and if you really love it, you will pay its worth. Following my recent Laurier GMT review and the inevitable look at Rolex GMT prices over the decades, Seiko's price journey seems far tamer in comparison. This resentment of price hiking also stems from an age in which many consumers fail to understand the immense amount of work that goes into developing a watch and expanding upon a brand. It's mind-boggling to think that so many people expect everything to be super high quality while at the same time remaining super cheap. Surely Seiko should get paid for all the hard work they put in. That said, with so many great micro brands offering fantastic watches and extremely low cost, cheap homage watches flooding the market, not to mention the continually improving digital watches, the fact of the matter is that Seiko perhaps is just not the best option under $500 anymore. The parameters have shifted, perhaps to the best under $1,000 instead. In a decade's time, you will see the price increase again, and that is why you will never get a better Seiko watch under $500 than the SARB033. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said it best: nothing endures but change. So what will become of the SARB033 now? I think it will go the way of other highly coveted, discontinued, beloved Seikos and become very collectible indeed. At the time of making this video, you can still buy them new. But if you are considering one, don't delay. So guys, that's it. Please do add your thoughts, queries, comments, opinions, all the rest of it down below. I'm dying to know what you think is going to happen to the SARB033. Also, Seiko as a whole, is it better? Is it worse? Where do you think it's going? Perhaps you've fallen out with of love with the brand. Do share. I'm dying to hear your feedback. It's something I probably enjoy the most when I make videos, and seeing what you guys think. Also, if you'd like to see more unsponsored reviews, please don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to check out, I'll leave the link up there, my latest review of the Laurier, in my opinion, the best micro brand GMT under $1,000, in case you missed it. Alright guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.